direction. No one can pull me out. I've always felt different from the others. I'm running away now. Fears are fading, won't stop bleeding. 'Cause I'm sick of standing up instead of going down. I'm sick of never being able to cross the line. I'm sick of pretending everything is fine. You got it, you're just a fucking freak like me. Burning inside, but I am alive. I'm not the one that you used to know. I've always hated to act like the others. I found my way to. Tears are fading, won't stop bleeding. Fears are fading. 'Cause I'm sick of standing up instead of going down. I'm sick of never being able to cross the line. I'm sick of pretending everything is fine. You got it, you took a fucking break like me. I'm sick of standing up instead of going down. I'm sick of never being able to cross the line. I'm sick of pretending everything is fine. You got it, you're just a fucking freak like me. Fucking freak like me, yeah. A fucking freak like me, yeah.
And that right there, ladies and gentlemen, is the sound you love to hear on a Thursday night, because that means it's party time with the Video Bros. That's right, doubleheader time right here on one half of those Video Bros. I'm Bobby Munson, and the man right there beside me, you know him, he is my partner in crime. He is the man with the angelic voice. Here it comes, he is Papa Smokes!
Ooh, yeah.
It's going to be a good night here, Papa Smokes. I'm ready to have a lot of fun. Everybody's been doing a great job. Singing the praises of what we do right here tonight. And thank you to everybody who has done everything they can to show us love and support for our Thursday night doubleheader, including our good friends at Prairie Pro Wrestling. Of course, yeah, boys, you got that right. And kick some ass tonight. We will. We're going to represent just perfectly here. And there we go. Ed Fries, how you doing, sir? Awesome to see you in here. Great to see you. And, of course, Ole, as you see right there, right somewhere. To hell with the pointing thing. Up in the top corner right above me, you see the symbol, Ole. You're starting to catch on to it. It's coming through. And oh, my goodness, that Canada dude. Yes, Sir Andre. Bobby. Yo, yeah, man, I'm bringing the fun. I hope you're going to have a good time here with us tonight. Thank you for tuning in. Each and every one of you means the absolute world. And hey, it just wouldn't be a Bobby Chan if it wasn't followed by a Papa Smokes. Papa Smokes. Yeah, you got that right, Canada. Dude, we love you, man. Thanks for joining in. This is going to be a fun time. Before we get started with the first half of the show, which is Ring Respect Radio, talking all about wrestling legacies, we want to say a big thanks to our Rogue Affiliate sponsor, as you see right there in the top corner. Rogue Affiliate, you can go and check them out. They are a natural or more natural energy drink. They are a solution to the energy drinks that you find in the stores, the ones that have all those sugars and everything like that that are bad for you. Rogue Energy are delivering something that is a better alternative to keeping you up all night. So if you're like us, you want to party, you want to be on stream, you want to play games, you want to have some fun, check out our friends at Rogue Energy. All you got to do is click that Rogue Affiliate QR code that you see right above Mr. Papa Smokes over there, and it'll take you right there. And guess what? Better yet, you can use the promo code OLE Pods. That's OLE Pods. And you're going to get 10% off of your order from our friends over at Rogue Energy and our good friend Carl over at Turnbuckle Studios. Always a good time with Bobby and Papa Smokes, yes. And also, Turnbuckle Studios, I was honored to be able to join Carl and Ed on Tuesday night for Turnbuckle Talk. It was an amazing time, and I just want to say a big thank you to both those gentlemen for spending the night there with me, talking some wrestling on a Tuesday night. You can check that episode out right now on Turnbuckle Talk Studios, on YouTube, on Twitch, anywhere. Give them a like, a follow it, man. I'm seeing those numbers rise in the top corner, Papa Smokes. I'm pumped. I'm ready. It's going to be a good night for us here. We got lots of friends joining us, and it's rock and roll time as we're talking about wrestling legacies, because guess what? Next week, speaking of those legacies, a man we're going to talk about, especially in this first little bit of the show, we're talking about a man named Lance Anoa'i, who's going to be joining us next week for a very special edition of our MLW review show, Fusioned, right here. So we're going to be having Lance Anoa'i in the studio. So if you guys want to get your questions in for the man that comes from one of those great wrestling legacies, do so next Thursday night. We're going to be going on nice and early at 8:05 Eastern time. So definitely check that out as we're being joined now by Loli. Oh, and speaking of people who have been singing our praises, again, the word out there, thank you for all you're doing. We really do appreciate everything that you've done for us, and also for Prairie Pro Wrestling, that someone who was sitting there working so hard. I can't even begin to say how much he puts into a night of Prairie Pro Wrestling, Papa Smokes. Thank you so much for everything you do. And speaking of Prairie Pro Wrestling, before we start, Prairie Pro Wrestling, Saturday, October 29th. It is the October Massive Festival, Slobber Knocker. We don't quite have the name yet, but it doesn't matter because it's going to be a night full of people getting in the ring and beating the absolute living, hell with it, living piss out of one another inside that squared circle. And it's also going to include I believe it's announced, a weapons costume battle royal at the end of the night for the people live at the show. So make sure you get your tickets to that at any one of the wonderful sponsors that are selling Prairie Pro Wrestling tickets. And join myself and Papa Smokes for party time at PPW live in Saskatoon. All the wonderful people at Prairie Pro Wrestling. Man, it's gonna be another slobber knocker. We just came off of the September slobber knocker, Papa Smokes. October right around that corner. It's gonna be fun.
And I'm still smiling after this past Saturday night with the September slobber knocker. Ooh, we had another packed show and another huge reception from the fans. Great card. We had everything from Uncle Phil Deadly getting a huge pop that nearly blew the roof off the place to the unexpectedly intense match between El Assassino and Colton Kelly, which seems to be fueling a new rivalry and a new feud going in PPW. And then not to mention the very first title defense of the PPW championship by our actual real champion, Sheikh Akbar Shabazz. The rematch, yes, you're right. The rematch from the previous show, Cannonball Kelly with Johnny Two Fingers at his side. Oh man, was that a main event? And that place was hot, steamy. Everybody just piled out at the end, just in ecstasy of wrestling pleasure. It was just fantastic.
It was the talk of the office when I got to work on Monday, because half the people I work with, also Prairie Pro Wrestling fans, checking that out as well too. It's just a shame we can't fit more people in that building, Papa Smokes. Maybe it will have to be an expanded thing one day down the future. But going on to our main topic of the evening, we're talking about wrestling legacies, because again, we said Lance Anoa'i joining us here next week for Fusion, and we're going to be talking about a match featuring another member of the Anoa'i family in Jacob Fatu on the second half of the show when we do the Fusion part here tonight. But first, before we even start, Ed Fry's coming in with a very good question for the two of us regarding this. Which family legacy has left the biggest impact on the business? He's asking the McMahons, the Anoa'is, the Rhodes family, the Von Erichs, or the Hart family. And I'm going to turn this one to you first, Papa Smokes. Who do you think has left, or maybe somebody that's not even on that list right there, who do you think has left the biggest impact?
Yeah, we would have gotten around to this question at some point anyway, I suppose. So let's get right into it. In my opinion, as a wrestling historian, I always look to the past for the people who built the roads and built the bridges that everybody else goes across now. And for me, the family that had the most effect and influence on the wrestling business in America is the Fuller Welch family. You know, you remember Munson. I've talked about Ron Fuller before. He is part of a massive wrestling family from Tennessee. And his grandfather, Roy Welch, was the first big promoter in the States. He ran, promoters talk about running one city. It's kind of a big job to run one city. Roy Welch was running 13 states with, probably 5, 6, 7 cities in each state that he was running shows in. This was a guy who also really strongly influenced the way professional wrestling developed, because he was an old-time shoot fighter, or a hooker. I'll say it again, Munson. He was an old-time hooker, and he learned from the original Dutch Mantel, not the Dutch Mantel that we know now that is still alive and was in WWE some years back as a manager. Same name, but the original Dutch Mantel was a shooter from the 10s and 20s, and a real tough guy and a legend. Roy Welch learned from him and started to develop the professional wrestling style that we know in the ring now. So as a wrestler and as a promoter, and then he had a massive family with so many uncles, brothers, now there's grandkids, great grandkids, and all the guys that married into that family like immediately became wrestlers because they had such a huge business going. I've got to give it to the Welch, Fuller Welch family. They went by both names in wrestling, so you usually say both names. Yeah, massive influence.
Yeah, and again, Do Not coming in and definitely agrees with you, Papa Smokes, saying the Von Erichs or the Welch family having the biggest influence, and of course, Papa Smokes got in. By the way, Do Not, thanks for joining us 2 weeks in a row now. Really do appreciate it, my man. And again, Do Not, believe it or not, has actually made an appearance on Ring Respect Radio back in the infancy of me putting this show together before our days as commentary team. Papa Smokes made a very good appearance back reviewing a WrestleMania card that we watched one weekend, so that can be checked out over on the YouTube channel. And I want to say before we continue, and I go back to Ed's question, if you are watching us on Facebook Live right now, just want to let you all know that if you want to get in on the conversation, in order to do that, you will head over to Twitch or to YouTube and have to be signed in order to get your questions in. Unfortunately, the program does not pick up comments coming in from Facebook, so I cannot see anything coming in. So if you are watching on Facebook Live and want to join in on the conversation, make sure you head on over to either YouTube and Twitch, get signed in, and join us for the fun of the conversation. And I know we're going to talk very highly of the Anoa'i family. I mean, I've got a lot of notes written down about the legacy of the Anoa'i family, and I believe that from a fan perspective, they've got to stand out there for me in terms of what they've delivered inside that ring. Part of me does want to say that, I don't blame having the McMahons on there or blame people for even saying them, because not that they did it for wrestling as a whole, but if you look at wrestling as it's looked at today, what most people see the product as today are going to believe definitely that the McMahon family had that impact, whether it be from Vince Sr. down to Vince Jr. and the way he changed the game with, buying out the territories. I mean, I know a lot of long-term fans are going to believe that to be a detriment to the wrestling business, but a lot of modern-day fans definitely see it as something that got them into professional wrestling and helped to make it grow. As Do Not coming in, when it comes to wrestling impact, there is no bigger than the McMahons, but legacy is different. You know what? Yeah, based on those words, definitely 100%. I couldn't agree more. I just wanted to make it kind of clear that the McMahons also kind of hold their own in that vein as well too. But let's start talking about some of these legacies for a moment, Papa Smokes, and just going into them a little bit, including the Anoa'i family, because I really want to talk in depth about them, especially with Lance coming on the show. And I went and looked at the entire family tree here so I could kind of break down where everybody kind of comes into play, and we're going to break that down right now. But before we do, our main man, Bastard 69, that's Brian. Hey, boys, sorry I'm late. Doesn't matter, buddy. It doesn't matter if you're late, in the middle, or right near the end. The fact that you showed up and took time to join the Video Bros on a Thursday night, we love you for it. Thanks for coming in. We appreciate every single one of you that are following along here tonight. If you do so, make sure to like and subscribe to our channels. We do appreciate all the love and support from each and every one of you. Let's talk about the Anoa'is here, Papa Smoke. So I've written this down. One of the main starts to the Anoa'i family comes from basically the grandparents that would be it would be the parents to who would be Rocky Johnson, inevitably the grandparents of Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. That was where the one side of the family started. And on the other side of things was where you had, I believe it was pronounced Leoso Ripley, and I'm going to pronounce this incorrectly, so hopefully maybe you could correct me, Papa Smokes. Amatawana Anoa'i was on the other side of the family. And those kind of were the two families that kind of brought things together between the Anoa'is and what would be known as maybe the Fatu side of the family.
Yeah, I think the first family that you mentioned, like the oldest patriarch I can think of in that family was High Chief Peter Maivia, who was a highly successful wrestler in New York in Vince McMahon Sr.'s territory. And his wife was a promoter for the, I think it's called the 10 Island promotion or something. It's Hawaii. Yeah. And she ran that promotion for a long time. So the fact that right at the first family members you have in the business, one's a very, very successful wrestler and one's is a promoter and runs a successful promotion, then you've got your foot in the door pretty well at that point. So yeah, I know that The Rock and all those guys always send a lot of respect to Peter Maivia, because he was the trailblazer for their family in the wrestling business.
And of course, that's where the original name for what would become The Rock came from, was between the two names of High Chief Peter Maivia and his father Rocky Johnson, getting the name of Rocky Maivia when he first came out, which inevitably became shortened to The Rock. And now, along that same pathway, we now have somebody else who's first stepping into the business, because Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson's daughter is now making her way into the business. She is known as Ava Rain. Simone Johnson now getting her feet inside of the professional wrestling ring. So we're going to get to start seeing that new younger generation of this family. And I would say that's similar to where we are with Lance as well, too. And we'll get to that in a moment on that side of the family tree. But again, Simone has not really had her opportunity to shine just yet. Many people wondering if she'll be able to live up to the legacy that her father left. And at the same time, I think we need to stop worrying about whether she'll live up to his legacy and whether or not she can just cement her own and just carry on that family legacy name in general.
Oh, when your dad is that tremendously famous, I would have tried to have no connection with him whatsoever, because you can never live up to him, right? Like, he's the biggest star wrestling has ever had by a long shot. So, but people know, and it's a fact that she's his kid, and she's going to get her opportunity. As I've seen pictures of her, she's quite young and all that, so she's got some learning to do and some experience to get, but she'll just be the newest member of the family in.
We know that she'll get there one of these days too, but again, she is trying to distance herself in terms of going with a name like Ava Rain, making sure that it doesn't copy her father, and she can cement her own legacy. Now, moving over to the other side of the family, I mentioned Leoso Ripley and Amatawana Anoa'i. Again, I hope I pronounced that correctly. If not, maybe Lance can correct me next week when we're talking to him. That side of the family, those were the parents of who would be known as Afa and Sika back in the day, and I want you to elaborate a little bit more on that. I know you're very familiar with the work of Afa and Sika there, Papa Smokes.
They were the next big ones after Peter Maivia had a good run as a face in the 60s and 70s in WWE, or WWF at that time, I guess it was. But Afa and Sika were the Wild Samoans. They were a toast of the town tag team in their day. They won the WWF tag team championships a number of times under the tutelage of Captain Lou Albano, who would do their promos for them, because of course they were playing these Polynesian savages and eating the heads off of raw fish in their promos and stuff like that, and really good stuff, and they were so scary. And they were good workers. They understood ring psychology. They didn't do stuff that they didn't need to do. And then they opened one of the first big prominent wrestling schools in America back at a time where there really just weren't wrestling schools. If you wanted to get into the business, you'd try and find a veteran to mentor you, and he might teach you or maybe a couple of people at the same time, but there weren't really schools, but Afa and Sika, once they retired, started that school, and it was a tremendously successful. And the people they've trained, I mean, would just be a Hall of Fame list pretty much. They were churning out wrestlers and wrestlers, good ones, main event people, all around in different companies, all around the world and everything. So they, Afa and Sika are two of the big anchors in their family in wrestling in America for sure.
Yeah, and I want to mention before we even start about Afa and Sika and who they left for Legacies along the way too. I'm going to mention that Afoa Anoa'i on that side, also the father of someone who, again, wouldn't have known this when I was a young kid because kayfabe was still strong enough to make me believe it. But the father of one Rodney Anoa'i, better known to the WWF or WWE faithful as Yokozuna.
Yeah. Rodney was Yoko, and they played him out as a Japanese sumo guy or whatever, but he did have that look to him. But of course, he was a South Sea Islander, just like his brothers and his buddies back there.
And what a talent he was too. What a not only able to portray that character, but he was menacing. He was good in the ring, and for a big guy, talk about like a lot of the Anoa'i family are bigger guys that can really move inside that ring. But Rodney was a perfect example. Yokozuna could really move for a guy who was that physical size.
So talented, and not only was he good at moving his huge body around, but he understood the business. Everyone I've heard talk about him that he's a veteran in the business always spoke tremendously highly of Yoko, and not just because he's passed away and all that, but because he was actually that good.
Yeah. And so then moving on in this legacy, going back to Afa and Sika now, Sika actually is the father of, I think people might know this name I'm going to throw out there. It might be his first name is Joe, last name Anoa'i, better known to the faithful as Roman Reigns, or the guy who's on God mode right now, and with over 2 years as the current reigning WWF, WWE, Universal Heavyweight, every title on the planet champion.
So what relation is he to Afa and Sika?
That Sika is his father. He's also because Sika is the father of Rosie, who unfortunately passed away a while back. But he's the brother of Rosie, Matthew Anoa'i, and also Sika is their father.
Okay, that's very interesting. Yeah, very interesting. Hey, and since you have some of that right in front of you, where does the Tonga Kid? Can you find him on there and tell me a bit about his relation?
You better believe it. I got right here that Vera and Fatu Sr. were the parents of the Tonga Kid. They were also the parents of who we would know as Umaga and also Rikishi as well, too. So that was the legacy that they left behind. And, of course, the Tonga Kid would then become the father of who we know as Jacob Fatu. So living on with the Fatu legacy right there through his father, the Tonga Kid. Of course, Rikishi leaving behind Jimmy and Jey Uso and also Solo Sikoa in that bloodline. And then I've also got written down here that if we go back to Afa, who's the father of Samu, Manu, and Lloyd, who would better be known as L.A. Smooth.
Right. Holy cow, eh? So all their kids became wrestlers, eh? Like pretty much all of them.
Most of them, yeah.
Yeah. And
so,
I wanted to ask about the Tonga Kid because we know who his son is Jacob Fatu, but it was interesting at the time in the late 70s and early 80s in WWF that Jimmy Snuka was one of their big babyface draw. This is before Hogan got there, of course, and everybody loved Snuka. Snuka wanted more and more, but he was touring heavily. He had some things going on outside the ring, which we know more about now, but he wasn't able to do some of the tours and had to take time off at various points. So they had various guys try to fill in to be the next Jimmy Snuka, and one of those was the Tonga Kid. And that's of course, he couldn't really fill Snuka's shoes. It's a difficult job, but he had a good little run against Piper and Orndorff and those guys, and then of course his son being Jacob Fatu. Oh yeah, He's keeping it in the family too.
And speaking of Jacob Fatu, coming up on the second half of the show, our Fusion MLW review show, we're going to be reviewing a match between two legacy wrestlers. We're talking about Ross Vaughn, Erich, and Jacob Fatu, the son of the Tonga Kid. This is going to be an interesting conversation on the second half of the show. We are going to talk about other families here, but before we finish up with the Anoa'i family, can't help but mention where Lance falls into this whole thing. So Lance is actually the son of Samu, one half of the legendary Head Shrinkers tag team. This we saw used in MLW. If you catch some of our previous reviews that we've done for the MLW shows in the Battle Riot, at one point Lance actually eliminated his own father from the Battle Riot matchup itself. So yes, that's quite interesting that Lance Anoa'i continue on that legacy from his father Samu. And Astrid joining us here today. Astrid, good evening. Good to see you. Glad the family is all safe. Again, everybody who's in the Florida area and everything, just all the best to all of you. Hope you're staying safe and nothing too bad. We saw pictures from our friend Bud Heavy, whose house got smashed by a big tree in the front yard. His family was not there at the time. They had actually left the premises, which again, I am thankful that Bud Heavy and his family are completely safe. I wouldn't want to wish that upon anybody, and I don't wish anything bad upon anybody. I hope that everybody in the Florida area and every area that's being affected right now by Hurricane Ian, I believe it's called, is staying safe and healthy and just, overall staying positive in this very, very troublesome time.
Yeah, and also for me, Astrid and Bud Heavy, if you're listening somewhere too, and I've just started thinking in the last couple days how many people I know through wrestling that live in Florida, and it just kind of brings it home that we don't have a hurricane season up here. Of course, we have some pretty killer cold snaps that are pretty dangerous, I suppose, but nothing like a hurricane that could just take everything away. I hope you guys are all being safe. Make sure you're hunkering down and wait till it passes.
Yeah, I'll take the worst cold day and worst stormy day we've ever had here in Saskatchewan before I'd ever live to go through one of those things. I can't believe that everybody's managing to stay so positive during this time. And again, all the best to everybody being affected out there. We're really hoping for a positive outcome for everybody. But Astrid saying all good now. It's left Florida. So yeah, get the hell out of there, Ian. Thrown over the top ropes and eliminated completely. Don't return. We don't want to see you come back. So yes, again, hopefully everybody's doing okay. And people will begin to recover, and everyone will do everything they can to help out everybody who's been affected by this terrible, terrible storm. Moving back, though, Papa Smokes, let's get back on track with talking about family or legacies so that we can maybe bring a smile to people's faces while they're going through some hard times. We just wouldn't be very Canadian now, would we, if we were talking about family legacies? We didn't talk about the Canadian family legacy, and I'm talking about the Hart family legacy. Beginning with the infamous Stu Hart, who was actually born right here in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan himself, before making his way out to Calgary and starting Stampede Wrestling.
Yeah, and he was a guy that was all around America and all around the world with wrestling because he was that good. He kind of started at the time where it was not nearly as choreographed as it is today. It was more of a real struggle. They might have just I think they had fixed finishes in those days, but the rest of it was probably a couple of guys grappling against each other, trying to get the upper hand. And it wasn't a very smooth transition from real shoot fighting into worked matches, let me tell you that much.
Yeah, but he went on to build quite the legacy, not only as a wrestler, but also as a promoter starting Stampede Wrestling, and also being the one to train many of the best absolute names that have ever graced professional wrestling at the same time. And a lot of those people became either adopted into the Hart family legacy or ended up marrying one of the daughters of Stu Hart himself and becoming there. Talking about Davey Boy Smith, for example, marrying Diana and becoming part of that family. Jim Neidhart, he was married to, I believe Ellie Hart was the one that he married there. And of course, their daughter Natalia, now known amongst the WWE faithful. Again, we saw the rise of, I guess it was pre times that the WWE was starting to get into things, but Smith Hart and Keith Hart were a couple of names that really were standing out at the time. And then some of the boys started to become promoters themselves before the likes of Brett and Owen and, you know, even Brian Pillman, for that matter, came along and started their training, getting involved and getting their way over to the WWF, WWE.
Yeah, that's just it. And when you're a family that has 7 boys and 5 girls or something, and you have a family business, you know a bunch of them are going to get into it. And this is the same thing like the Anoa'is or the Fuller Welches as well. If you have a big family business that's fun and it's making money as well, you're going to have a bunch of those people get in on it. And a lot of several of Stu's daughters married wrestlers, keeping that legacy going. And then all the boys, maybe except for 1 or 2, all had something to do with wrestling, including being wrestlers and promoters and all that stuff too. And it's kind of a shame that Stu wasn't all that famous as a wrestler. He wrestled his whole life pretty much, but he was never really a star in the business. But a lot of people, especially in America, only know the Harts from WWE. So Brett and Owen kind of thing, they maybe even think there's only 2 of the brothers and then just a couple of brothers-in-law. But in fact, this was a family that wrestling was in their blood and in everything about them. And they always had a ring set up. They had the dungeon in the basement for training. So, I mean, you were starting as a little wee kid. And even if you weren't starting, you were seeing the guys that were, and you were watching, and it just becomes infectious throughout you, and you become what your family already is.
Yeah, and do not coming in, a little known fact, I was one of the last people to step foot in the dungeon before it was closed in 2003 due to Stu's death. And yeah, and again, a lot of things from that class in particular. Again, one of the graduates that came out of that class that was from right here in Saskatchewan as well, too, after graduating from training at the dungeon, ended up in a drinking and driving accident, and his life was taken way too soon as well, too, before we ever got to see him live up to his full potential inside a wrestling ring. So it's very unfortunate that nobody got to continue on with the legacy of the dungeon itself. But again, you got a brilliant opportunity to get to step in there and even witness it firsthand. And I mean, that alone is worth its weight in gold, to be able to step there and see what brought up most of the greatest professional wrestlers that we ever seen grace that ring, including, and I want to mention it, Owen Hart. I mean, damn it if he isn't one of the best of the Hart family to ever step in there, because with Owen, I find it was the full package. Not only could the guy wrestle and tell a story inside that ring, but he has got the most charisma of any of the Hart family I've ever seen, whether it's his promos or whether just the fun-loving attitude that you'd see. I remember meeting him, and this guy was just full of energy 24/7. It just seemed like he was that guy, walks in a room that everybody wanted to be around.
Yeah, a lot of people are really torn about which Hart brother was actually the better professional wrestler. Sounds like you're in Camp Owen. I think I'm a Brett man.
I think Brett's the better professional wrestler overall, but in terms of complete package with a promo and stuff like that, I'd say Owen maybe beats him on the charisma side of it slightly.
The only thing I ever found about Owen was that he never seemed very serious, that's
True.
Just him for sure. He's always joking. Brett could put it on where you knew he was dead serious, and it got you worked up for his match to think, oh Jesus, I don't know what's going to happen in this. But Owen more to the kind of comedy side of things, which is quite fine as well. But I always think Brett made the better champion,
Yeah, we got no one could beat Owen in ribs from Duna, and then Ed saying Owen versus Brett was such a great match at Mania 10. It would be more talked about if it wasn't for HBK versus Razor. I still think it's talked about. I mean, I don't know about you. I both those matches were fantastic matchups, and Brett and Owen in terms of like technicality and general surprise at the same time too. I don't think anyone going into it, myself included, thought there was a chance in hell that Owen Hart was going to walk out victorious over his brother, who had a title shot later in that night, but he did. And that legacy lives on today, man. That was a phenomenal matchup and one of my favorites from WrestleMania.
Yeah, I hear lots of people talk about that match online. I think it is quite an unsung classic, but you think of the chemistry that these guys had, again, growing up together as brothers, and would have constantly had each other as opponents and training partners and such in all their training. So they know each other so well. Same thing, another one of the great WWF matches of that period was the from Wembley Stadium, or was it in Manchester? The
Wembley Stadium, London, England.
Intercontinental title match of Bret Hart versus British Bulldog.
Yeah.
Babyface versus babyface. And who was, I can't remember the match that it was supposed to be that fell through, but Vince was left without that Intercontinental match. He needed that one. And the boys just threw it together. Well, we've wrestled each other a million times. Like, let us do it. You're both babyface. He's the hometown guy. We'll make it work. Don't worry about it. And I watched that live on pay-per-view, not live in person. And I was blown away, like absolutely blown away at the time. Still one of my favorite matches.
Phenomenal matchup, absolutely. And again, you can just tell the greatness that was Bret Hart to be able to, you can tell he definitely led a lot of that matchup in particular, and he really sold it. He really made you believe that Davey was a big star at the time and put him over big time in front of that home crowd. It got that massive pop that made people to this day still talk very highly about that pay-per-view. Even if they don't remember another match from that pay-per-view, they will always remember Bret Hart versus Davey Boy Smith for the Intercontinental title.
Yeah, and not to cast any aspersions on anything, but Davey Boy was real wasted for that match too, so he wasn't like at his best. And Bret had to carry him through that over his shoulder pretty much. And that awesome finish that they had, Davey couldn't remember it right before it was supposed to occur too, and Bret had to like whisper it in his ear basically.
Took the words right out of my damn mouth. What are you drinking, Papa? I got a little of the whiskey going myself.
I have a beer here called the Lech. Oops, that's probably a fitting name for a beer for me to be drinking, and it's it's just called premium beer, and it's from Poland, and it's kind of a hopsy tasting, light, fizzy kind of beer. It's quite good actually.
And a good thing that we weren't asked what we were smoking before this thing went on, because, you know, it's just not that type of show, people. We don't want to get into that kind of stuff, because that's still illegal in other countries, believe it or not. That being said, so that's the Hart family. We've talked about the Anoa'i family. A lot of other families. We could be here all night if we were to break each one of them down, but I'm just going to kind of mention a few and get a few little things from you on each of these. I got to mention the Rhodes family. Again, not a long legacy quite like the Harts and the Anoa'i family, but again, you've got Dusty, who's done so much for professional wrestling and really changed the game of professional wrestling. Then you had Dustin come along and you really change things up, really make a difference. And then after that, you've got Cody, who's coming in and really living up to the legacy of both his father and his older brother as well, too.
Yeah, and this is just a one generation thing, just dad and his sons kind of, but this is they all got big. Like Dusty's one of the biggest stars America has ever seen in wrestling. Dustin got quite big, especially as Gold Dust, and then Cody's also getting quite over too.
Hopefully we have not lost the feed there. I don't know if this is me glitching out or if that's you, Papa Smokes, but I will continue to... Oh, hold on. I think we're back there, Pop Smokes. I think we're having a little technical difficulty. Are you back with me?
I'm back. You got to fix your router, Munson.
I know I do. So hopefully that wasn't too long of a break. Sorry about that, folks. But yes, that was the Rose family, as you were saying. Again, we got do not mentioning the Funks. So we got the Funk family as well, too. Tell us a little bit about them quickly.
Well, the Funks worked out of Amarillo, Texas, out in West Texas, and Dory Funk Sr. was the guy that got all that going, and he would have been from Roy Welch's day, from the 30s and 20s kind of thing, and he was one of the guys that got American technical catch-can style. He was actually like quite a technician, the old man, even though he had brass knuckles matches and choked people with bull ropes and stuff too, good Texas wrestler stuff, but he was a technician, and he taught his sons, Dory Funk Jr. and of course Terry Funk, all the niceties of technical wrestling. And a lot of people remember Terry Funk in one way from all the death matches, and he was in ECW and has all kinds of nutty stuff, getting all the chairs thrown at him and piled up in chairs and that. But both Dory Jr. and Terry started as technical babyface wrestlers. And Terry won the NWA title in the late 70s, just being based as a young, clean babyface technical wrestler, if you can believe that. And he has an NWA title reign under his belt, so at a young age. So that was an indication of where his career was going to go, like basically anywhere he wanted it to. And he changed throughout the years. He got more into a hardcore style, and that's completely allowed their wrestling royalty, the Funks. And they also have that wrestling school, the Funkin' University, out at in Amarillo as well. And they were promoters as well. They ran that Amarillo territory there. So they know all aspects of the business, and the Funks will always be a high royalty in wrestling.
All right, now, okay, moving on from them, I got a few more I want to run by before we come to a close on this half of the show and move on over to Fusion. But I want to talk for a minute about the Wyndham Rotunda family, and I'm not talking about Wyndham Rotunda himself individually. I'm talking about the family, starting with Blackjack Mulligan, Barry Wyndham, Mike Rotunda, and now modernly Bray Wyatt and Bo Dallas, a.k.a. Wyndham Rotunda and Taylor Rotunda. Also another great legacy of family wrestlers, now in the third generation, I believe.
Okay, that's interesting, because how is Mike Rotunda related to Barry Wyndham and Blackjack Mulligan? Is that by marriage?
It's through marriage, yeah. That's where that comes
okay.
into. So that's why, again, that you'll find that Bray's actual name, Wyndham Rotunda, comes from the two family names.
Yeah, okay, that's very interesting. Yeah, Blackjack Mulligan was a huge force in wrestling in the 60s, 70s, and part of the 80s too. Former football player and just huge guy, but he's a good wrestler and an excellent promo. I like watching Mulligan stuff. I'll watch it anytime, but he was also a wrestling mind as well. He did a lot of booking, and he booked for a whole bunch of companies. So if you can do that for any length of time, you've got a pretty good mind for the business, and that would start that legacy then, when having Barry Wyndham as your son, just one of the great wrestlers of the 80s for sure. Only leading to more. And then Wyndham was tag team partners with Mike Rotundo, so I suppose that's how this romance and marriage started, with various brothers and sisters meeting each other. And then look at they got another star out of that family line with Bray Wyatt. Not so much Bo Dallas, I suppose, but he was on WWE TV, so that's right up there.
And again, the rumor mill is buzzing about possibly Bray returning, but also, again, my theory in the whole thing is I believe that Taylor Rotunda, a.k.a. Bo Dallas, could also be back on his way, and I think that this time around, he's going to be involved with his brother this time. A lot of theories that you could go check out my opinions on over on Turnbuckle Studios. We had that conversation on Tuesday night, so I will not bore people with too much of that here tonight. A few more I want to go through, and again, one that I want to talk about that I wouldn't say necessarily left a lot of people in a bloodline type style, but talk about a family that made an impact within professional wrestling. I want to talk about the Vachon family for just a moment, because again, you know my fondness for Luna. Obviously, I got to meet Luna Vachon when I was a young kid, one of the most wonderful people I've ever met in this industry. And again, I got absolutely nothing but love for not only Luna, but also for her parents, or I guess Mad Dog was an adopted parent, if I'm not mistaken, to Luna.
Yeah, I believe so. But it's good that that's some Canadian content, bringing up the Harts and the Vachons. We could talk about the Rougeaus also in
very much so, yeah.
In Montreal. They were big wrestlers and big promoters out there as well. But the Vachons, even a larger family, had lots of members in there, including Vivian Vachon, that was a successful wrestler, and they had another member, a female member, that used to be a referee regularly out in Montreal in the 60s, when that was absolutely unheard of, having a female referee in males matches. So another groundbreaker in the family there that I wish I could remember her name. I know I've seen a picture of her, and she worked a long time for their promotion as a referee.
Somebody check those facts for us and let us know in the comment section. Because you could go back and check it out on a previous edition of Ring Respect Radio. I won't go over it for too long, but obviously Bullet Bob Armstrong left behind a very big legacy. We did a whole episode on that. Of course, his sons, more notably Road Dogg, which a lot of people are very familiar with, Scott Armstrong, Brad Armstrong, and Steve Armstrong, all very prominent in the professional wrestling business.
Yeah, we had a nice talk about them. It must have been almost 2 years ago, but yeah, there you go. That was the last family I wanted to bring up for sure, because they had a lot of members in that. But Armstrong boys, yeah, that's just a 2-generation thing. Bob and then his sons, but they all succeeded wildly in the wrestling business, and it's just kind of unheard of for all the members of a family, or most of them, to get big in the business instead of just maybe one or two.
Yeah, it was quite the legacy. So you go check that out. Again, do not bring it up, the Guerreros. Yes, we know that. Chavo Sr., Eddie, Chavo Jr. Again, every time you hear the name Guerrero, you're pretty much in for a treat when it comes to the professional wrestling ring. What a legacy they all left behind.
Yeah, and just like some of these other families we talked about, like Roy Welch and Stu Hart, Gory Guerrero was the big patriarch that got them into the professional wrestling business, and he was a tough guy as well. He had done shoot fighting and all that stuff too, and Gory is very, very influential in Mexican wrestling. He, in terms of moves and all that, he invented lots of moves that are commonly used in lucha now, and some grappling moves as well. So, and he had a big family. I don't think at that time there were many female wrestlers in Mexico or Texas down there, this being in the 50s and stuff, but a lot of those boys got into it. And as we've all heard Eddie tell his childhood story, we had a ring in the backyard. There was a million kids of all ages running around all the time. There was action in that ring all the time. We were playing. They let us play to a certain extent, but the father figures that were around always said, "Hey, you can play, but this is a place of sanctity, and you got to show it respect. So there's no monkey business going on in here. If you guys want to play, that's fine. We'll show you how to do stuff safely, but no monkeying around in here either, because the ring is holy to us, and it's what we do, and it's how our family makes its living."
For sure. And I just want to mention one last family, because we started talking about the Anoa'is, where Jacob Fatu falls in line, and his opponent that we're going to be talking about from the matchup we're going to be reviewing just shortly here is also part of the wrestling legacy. We're talking about the Von Erich family. And again, we've seen Ross and Marshall a lot on the MLW side. A lot of the times they're there with Father Kevin, but just talk for a minute about the legacy that the Von Erichs left behind, Papa Smokes.
Yeah. Well, as popular and as well known as the boys were, as David, Kevin, and Kerry were, their dad, Fritz Von Erich, was a trailblazer in American wrestling in the 50s and all that too. And again, the same story again. Fritz was the first guy to get into the professional wrestling business. He was a real tough guy, a big guy, and lots of people were scared of him and all that. So he had that kind of Nazi type gimmick going on, and which was a successful heat getting thing at that time and at a different time. And he was a huge star in wrestling, and he main evented all around America, and then he had lots of big spots in Japan. Baba loved to book him and paid him those exorbitant amounts of money that they were throwing at American wrestlers to get that talent over to Japan. And Fritz had a great career as a wrestler, and then started promoting in Dallas and using the Sportatorium as his venue. We all saw what happened. He had these 5 handsome sons that were all athletic and playing football in school and stuff, and wanted to get follow into their dad's footsteps and enter the business. And Yeah, they're all good-looking kids, and just marketing them as straight baby faces and booking them as strong baby faces on your cards. It started a whole sensation in Dallas. There, they were filling up stadiums and all kinds of massive shows with the Von Erich boys. Of course, we saw that Kerry Von Erich had a short run as NWA champ, pinning Ric Flair in the middle of Texas Stadium to a near religious crowd that just lost their minds completely when this happened. Check that match out. You won't even see the fan reaction like that in almost any other match. It's Kerry Von Erich is like Jesus when he's got that belt there, and they now of course the Von Erich boys had their personal problems and some demons outside the ring. I don't even want to go through what happened with that, but because we've got the next generation, Kevin's here, and he's got the two sons that we've watched and enjoyed so much, Ross and Marshall Von Erich. They're continuing on the legacy. They live out in Hawaii now, but their roots are in Texas, so they still have the jeans and cowboy boots and cowboy hats and stuff, and they're carrying on exactly where their dad and uncles left off. And for a guy like me that grew up watching Kevin and Kerry and those guys, it's fun to have a new generation for the young people keeping that name in the wrestling business.
Yeah, and they're doing a fantastic job of it, which we're going to find out right away more about. So that's going to bring us to an end on Ring Respect Radio, but as promised, it's Thursday night, double feature night, and so we've got another half of this show, because Papa Smokes and I, we love us some Major League Wrestling, MLW, and we've gotten really good at doing some reviews of their stuff. Again, we know Fusion is right around the corner with a new season coming up, and to kind of ring that in, again, Lance Anoa'i going to be joining us here next week, so make sure you tune in live to get your questions in for Mr. Lance Anoa'i. That one's going to be starting 1 hour early, so we're actually going to be starting at 8:05 Eastern next week so that we can accommodate Lance with the time schedules and everything like that, so it's going to be wonderful to have him on our show. So we're going to end Ring Respect Radio. We're going to give you guys about a 2 to 2.5 minute break. Go top off your drinks, grab another beer, go and take a pee, whatever you need to do, because you got a couple minutes to do so, and then we're going to be right back with our episode of Fusion. Thank you. See you soon.
I made this shit last. Burning down to the wake-up call, to the sun grows cold, to the making it down. Judgment is what they find us, so deep out of space of judgment. I'm cracking your past, stay a fight, why I can't run. Why? It's not just what's the gods, free run.
The number you have dialed has been changed. The new number is... Please note. Please note.
Never gonna stop, never gonna change, never gonna do the things you say. I run my own way to get there. Pulls a coin in the eye, seem to care. In the air, no more crowd, just the opposite kind of few clouds. So tell me the storm is coming for the sake of all your lies. Why don't you try to be wise? Now that I need you, why? I never wanted to be alive, just to feel like I'm fading. And though my heart breaks a beat of down, I cross the last just to tell you, don't leave the way, don't leave the day. Then I try with a shadow playing the rain.
screen for the second half of the double feature here on Thursday nights. Whether you're joining us on Twitch or on YouTube or on Facebook Live, thank you for spending our Thursday nights partying with the video bros. Here we go. Cheers, Papa Smokes. And cheers to all of you for tuning in and staying tuned in for the second half of the program. If you're watching the replay on YouTube, you might be just watching this show on its own. So hello, and thank you for joining us, and thank you for tuning in. And as our good friend Ed Fry says, if you're on the YouTube side, hit like and subscribe, because that does us a lot of favors right there. And if you're watching us here on Twitch, if you're so inclined to follow along, also send a sub. That would be awesome as well, too. Would really appreciate any support that we can get here from each and every one of you. But just tuning in, that's a lot of support as well, too. And speaking of support, I'm going to say it once again, right above Mr. Papa Smokes, you'll see that this is a Rogue affiliate sponsor that we have right up there. You can scan that QR code, Rogue Energy Drinks. Rogue Energy is a energy drink that is an alternative to what you can find in the stores. If you like to be able to have that energy and last all night, yeah, I'm talking last all night. Yeah, I went there, Pop Smoke. You want to get on over to Rogue Energy, check that QR code and use OLE Pods in the promo code so you get 10% off of your order. Speaking of OLE Pods, the cat's pretty much out of the bag. OLE Pods obviously is something big that's on the horizon, going to be coming soon. So all the shows that you're seeing from myself, Papa Smokes, and from various others, including some shows that have not debuted and we're going to be debuting specifically for OLE Pods, it's all coming down the pipeline here very soon. So continue to stay in for more news on the release of the full-blown agenda for OLE Pods. It's coming up very soon. So we love and appreciate all of you and the support. Papa Smokes, MLW, they're right. They're on the cusp of it. Court Bauer is teasing us at this point. The fusion is on the way. The new scene is coming up here soon. And we got Mel joining us. Melissa Wright, the anime shaker, looks like Mina Shirakawa. I wish I was up on my anime so I could understand what that means. I'm going to have to find out. But you know who knows a lot about anime and Japanese wrestling and stuff? That's Mel right there. You can catch her and Andre doing their show over on their YouTube channel. Mel, make sure, can you throw your YouTube channel link up on the comment section there so we can post it so everyone can go check that out, like and subscribe. I know that, again, our friend Ed Fry is going to be debuting a new show here very soon. Astrid and Mel have got a show in the works. Stardom Wrestlers. Yes, again, if you want to find out everything there is to know about Stardom, reach out to Mel. She knows everything there is to know. That is her niche, and she loves it and does a great job reviewing it as well, too, along with Andre. I've just checked out the recent episode, and they do a phenomenal job over there. Again, a big shout-out to everybody who's doing content and streaming every single week, putting these things out. We appreciate every single one of you and all the support we're getting, as well as seeing the wonderful work you're doing. I can't watch every single wrestling show, but what I can do is sit down and tune in to listen to my friends talking about other wrestling shows so I can find out what are the things that I want to be able to go back and check myself as well too. And again, Mel, make sure if you could throw your link to your channel up there for us, we'll make sure to let everybody know what that is so they can go and check out the show as well too. But Papa Smokes, it's time to talk a little MLW. Before we talk about the match we're going to review, I just want to ask you, what are you most excited about going into this new season of MLW Fusion? Anything in particular that stands out that you're really ready to watch?
Well, nothing in particular all that much, but I like the way that they take a couple months off in the summertime, and then it's kind of like they hit reset on the whole promotion in a way. And we've still got maybe some of the same champions or the same belts and all that, but the talent will be refreshed. We know of some people that aren't going to be back. We know of some new people that are going to be coming in. And we'll just see how this is going to be all meshed together. Will it still be prominent with Azteca and the luchadors and everything? I suspect that will still be a strong influence and one of the things I enjoy about MLW Fusion. But will such guys as Real One be back? We don't know answers to these questions, so the very first couple of episodes will kind of lay the groundwork for that, for what we can start thinking about for what our discussions on this podcast.
Well, we do know for sure that AAA is still in the mix doing some work with MLW, so we're going to see a lot of familiar faces from the AAA scene. Well, the nice thing is that they have opened up to working with Dragon's Gate in Japan as well, too. So we know for a fact that one of the highlighted wrestlers that was at the recent tapings, and again, I know it's been spoiled by MLW, but we're not going to spoil anything on this channel because we're going to save it for the people who haven't watched. But yes, Shun Skywalker making his debut in the new season of MLW. I'm very curious to see Shun Skywalker. I don't know anything about this young man at this point, Papa Smokes, so I'm ready to get a little bit of taste of what Shun Skywalker brings to the MLW table.
Same thing with me. I've heard his name before and spoken highly as a work rate guy, a guy that can go 100 miles an hour and do a lot of moves in quick succession, which isn't necessarily my cup of tea in pro wrestling, but it'll get you talked about in today's business, that's for sure.
It sure will. So we've got a match from the past to talk about because we've been doing this little bit of a rewind on MLW, going back, checking out certain shows, certain matches. You made a great suggestion that is a great segue from our first half of the show where we're talking about wrestling legacies. And you know, I realized something, Pop Smokes, because we haven't done a full-blown show at this point. And again, we got Duna. I want to see a full episode of Bruiser Mestino. If you know, you know. Well, I don't know, but now I need to know. So I got something to check into after that. But here we go. I haven't done this for a while, Papa Smokes, because we haven't had a lead-in match to get me there. But I'm feeling energetic. I'm feeling the love from all you people here. So guess what? At this point in time, it's Thursday night, and that means it's time for the main event of the evening. This match scheduled for one fall is for the MLW Heavyweight Championship of the world.
Yeah.
I put my name in the hat there, Papa Smokes. Give me a call. You want a little ring work done? I got the mic skills. I'm dropping them any time of the week.
I like that idea.
So speaking of that MLW title match, Papa Smokes, this was a great recommendation from you because we know we love Jacob Fatu, probably one of the best in professional wrestling today. And again, taking on one half of the Von Erich brothers, Ross Von Erich, with the championship on the line. Man, is it interesting to see the way Ross was looking at this point in time. Young, you know, just there's that glimmer of hope in his eyes, but he stepped into that ring with Jacob Fatu. You know, maybe a little bit of fear because, again, Jacob Fatu, a very intimidating man, but this young blue chipper and Ross Von Erich was looking like he had his eyes on the prize, wanted to grab that championship. He's got the blonde hair going in this one, looking really dapper, looking like the guy that everybody wants to give a call to and hang out later that night, especially if he manages to walk home with the gold, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But again, quite interesting to see the look on Ross Von Erich as he stepped into this one.
Yeah, but, you know, he's handsome just like his dad and his uncles, so it's good for wrestling, right? Like, all kinds of people find him handsome, find him a good-looking guy. He's got very athletic body, and he's agile and all that stuff. So he's a perfect baby face. He can do those moves that electrify the crowd by, you know, top rope stuff and all kinds of agile stuff. And then here he's working against another legacy wrestler. You know, it's kind of like the two families are battling almost. In Jacob Fatu, son of the Tonga Kid, and related to Afa and Sika and all that stuff. This is very, very cool for all those of us that have been watching wrestling for years and seen some of this stuff play out. And then now we've got the young batch, the current generation of legacy wrestlers coming head to head in MLW. What a pleasure it is to watch.
Oh, yeah, and this match was a pleasure to watch at the exact same time. Both men accompanied to the ring. So Ross Von Erich had Filthy Tom Lawler in his corner, former MLW champion. And on the other side of the ring, of course, Jacob Fatu being led by the head of Contra. We're talking about Joseph Samael, probably one of the best promos in professional wrestling today.
Yeah, undoubtedly. And I still miss Joseph Samael around MLW because he was really that, beyond just a manager and a mouthpiece for his faction, he kind of felt like he was part of the backbone of MLW. It felt like he was this legitimate manager in there that belonged there and everything. I must say it hasn't quite seemed the same without the overlying presence of Joseph Samael, sometimes coming through as a glitch during the broadcast, interfering with the wavelengths and coming in with one of those apocalyptic promos that he always hit. I just love his work, man. I think Samael's so excellent.
Yeah, he really is. And again, he plays a factor in the corner of one Jacob Fatu, but not that Jacob Fatu necessarily needs the outside factor at the same time. This is a big boy, intimidating, and one of the best, cleanest workers in the ring. His moves are smooth, but yet he hits with such an impact at the same time. Everything he does seems very strongly to keep himself and his opponent protected, but at the same time make it look like he's kicking the living daylights out of his opponents. And I've said it many times before, this is a rare thing, and it just goes. It's a testament to Jacob Fatu and just how excellent he is between the ropes.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, and I think another one of the things about Jacob Fatu and his popularity and success as a heel is that he plays it pretty real. He plays, if you want to call it a persona or a character, the wrestler Jacob Fatu, I think is quite similar to what he is as a guy himself. He's for real. He's straight. He gives it to you straight up, and that's the way he wrestles his matches too. And despite the fact that he's a feared monster heel kind of thing, the fans also resonate with him and bond with him to a certain degree because he's that real. He's an actual tough guy.
And I think that's what's got him over without actually changing who he is. It's got him over as a babyface as we lead into the new season of MLW, kind of towards the tail end of last season. But in the meantime and in between time, he was definitely a very feared opponent. But again, Ross Von Erich, with that glimmer of hope in his eyes, was not going to show fear to one Jacob Fatu in this one, and really took the fight to him for a long portion of this match. There is a lot of back and forth, and a lot of Ross actually getting a lot of the upper hand on the champion Jacob Fatu.
Yeah, he was in tough, well outweighed and outsized by Fatu. Ross Von Erich was on the defensive for a good part of this match. He was selling and stuff, and Jacob Fatu has a bunch of insane-looking offense that I'm always pleased when he gets to do all his moves and stuff, but always with the babyface comeback fire, Ross Von Erich. He's the perfect guy for it. He has the perfect look for it. And I can't remember, was this taping even in Dallas? Because that would have been interesting. I know they did a couple of sets of tapings, but at any rate, having that babyface heat and coming back, a little hope spot, he's been getting worked over for a bit, and then he starts to get a couple shots back, and you think maybe he's going to make a comeback on Fatu, and then, those right hands that Fatu does with the loud smacking sound accompanying just are so good, man. He did a couple of those to that Josh Alexander and Ric Flair's retirement card, and just making a punch one of your best moves is just so genius because it's taking it right down to fundamentals. We've all seen how wrestlers don't like to punch so much these days. It's all those forearms now, but a good punch is a deadly move in professional wrestling, and Fatu's got one of the best ones.
Oh, does he ever? And again, we saw a lot of that on display. I got written down here, Samael making his interference known in this matchup. Very steep. I love the selling on the face of Joseph Samael. That smug little look like, oh, me? I wouldn't do anything wrong as he's stepping on Ross Von Erich's face on the outside of the ring. I thought that was a thing of absolute beauty in this one.
Yeah. Samael's got a great sense of the business. He's always in the right place at the right time. All his spots and everything are tasteful. You can tell he's grown up on a healthy diet of territories wrestling and psychology and booking, because to me at least he has a very, very intimate grasp on the wrestling business.
And do not saying best punch in wrestling, in his opinion, is a tie between Brett or Lawler. And again, I don't know if you've seen Jacob Fatu, but you should definitely check him out, because when we are talking about that guy selling a punch in terms of definitely in terms of modern day wrestlers, Jacob Fatu probably, I don't think anyone can hold a candle to the way that guy throws a punch right now. And it's half the reason that, you throw him out there and get him in front of new faces, like you were saying at the Ric Flair's last match card that we watched. A lot of people went into that not knowing Jacob Fatu or have heard of him, never seen him, and walked out of there a fan. And that's because he makes the simple stuff work beautifully. He doesn't have to be flashy. He doesn't have to be the guy that's doing 100 things a minute. He is the guy that makes sure the things he does do hit with impact, and they hit with perfection.
That's right. His in-ring always looks good. I want to say he's careful because he never makes any mistakes, but he doesn't look like he's trying to be careful either. So that's done very convincingly. And then another thing about Fatu is people always talk about workers as if working is just doing the moves smoothly and in sequence and everything, but working is also working the crowd. And that's what Fatu also gets. We were just talking about his charisma a few minutes ago, but the crowd likes him. So he gets that. So he gives them little tidbits to chew on. He'll talk to the crowd, and all crowds are different. They're all similar, but every crowd is different. So it takes a psychology, and it takes a real ring worker to read that crowd, to know what they're all about, and to have an appropriate response to that crowd. You can't teach that. That's experience alone. And we all can think of wrestlers, good wrestlers that connect with the crowd like that. Just to use another example, is Ricky Starks. I like the way this guy, you can see it on his face. He's looking at the crowd and listening to them, and then he bonds himself with that crowd no matter what. And it's just a thing to do. You have to get a whole bunch of experience working in front of all kinds of different crowds, but Fatu is a guy that gets that also.
Yeah, he really does, and I'm glad you brought that up, because I forgot to mention at the beginning of the match, he does a little bit of that where he reacts to a fan saying something from the front row and actually pulls the rope and challenges him to get his ass in the ring and step to him. I don't believe Fatu's kidding for a second. If someone wants to step to him, he'd probably lay the SOB out right there and then there.
Well, did you just see somebody reposted a video? I think it might be from last year or a couple years ago. It's a fan shot video, and it's showing some fans at a crowd barrier, obviously in the front row or whatever. And one guy moves beyond the barrier, and then you see him puffing up with his arms out, and he's stepping up to someone. And then you see the wrestler he's stepping up to comes into the picture, and it's Jacob Fatu. And he drills the guy, knocks him over real hard, and starts kicking him in the gut. Now the security's trying to protect the fan. And then Jacob's got a chair, and he hits the guy with the chair and throws the chair at him. And that's one of those lessons that people need to learn. Like, even now, despite that this isn't the old days where sometimes fans did get beat up by the wrestlers with no consequence, it still does happen. And if you're a fan live in a building and you're watching the match of a tough guy, badass heel, and you think you're going to show him up, it's his job. He can't back down from you. Once you do that, he can't back down, because that destroys everything that guy's ever built. So if you're ever thinking of doing that, or touching a wrestler, or doing any of that stuff, realize that depending on the wrestler, you might get yourself into some big trouble, because those guys just can't walk away from a drunk fan that challenges them. Now nobody's ever going to take you seriously. So be very careful with that, all you live fans out there, because that guy found out the hard way.
Well, us being the video bros, we're down there ringside for the PPW shows with the cameras and stuff like that. And even inadvertently, we kind of try to our best to stay out of the way. But these big boys come barreling through Papa Smokes, and it's not outside the ordinary for you and I to get pushed aside or toppled over. I mean, we're not small guys ourselves, and I mean, those guys can lay in a pounding. And I would not want to be on the receiving end of an ass kicking from Jacob Fatu. I do not mentioning I first heard of Jacob Fatu about 4 years ago. Went back to find some early stuff. Couldn't find much, but read he started as a tag team with a cousin or some family member. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, if I read this correctly and memory serves me right, is that he was actually a tag team, maybe with his old man, or with, I know he tagged with Lance for a while, actually, if I'm not mistaken. They were a tag team. I think they even might have been the Samoan SWAT team at that point before the faction in MLW. And I know that is varied, and Lance has gone on to team with Juicy Finau of that same family bloodline as well too at this point, which has now become the Samoan SWAT team in MLW with Jacob Fatu as their leader, and fantastic. I can't wait to see more from those three boys moving into the new episode of Fusion. But back on track to the match itself. So after all of this, I got the next spot that I wrote down was where originally Ross Von Erich is going for the infamous claw maneuver on Jacob Fatu. Fatu reverses this and tries to go for his power bomb on Ross Von Erich. And as he lifts Ross Von Erich up into the power bomb, you suddenly see Fatu struggling because Ross grabs the iron claw in the midst of the power bomb to reverse the damn thing. I thought this was a brilliant spot. Loved it.
Yeah, this was an awesome spot, and both devastating maneuvers coming head to head here. Like that Von Erich claw is completely legendary in the Texas area. From Ross's grandpa Fritz on down, they all used the claw because they had the way to apply it that you couldn't stand it for any length of time, and especially once they got you down on the mat with the claw, they could either pin you or you would inevitably submit. But Fatu knew he had to get out of this hold, and they ended up just tumbling over the ropes and taking a big fall to the outside floor, maybe getting a little bit of rest in this match because it was a big tumble, and they looked like they were tired.
Yeah, and shortly after they got back in, this is when things started to get a little ugly. So we had the referee was just off to the side of Ross Von Erich when Jacob Fatu smugly throws a hip check into Ross, which then inadvertently knocks the referee down and out. I mean, completely out. Or, I mean, maybe slightly out, but he was completely out after he took an ass kicking himself from Jacob Fatu. Beat this poor referee right into the corner of the ring, taking him completely out of action on this one for the time being.
Yeah, and you know that with Contra involved, if the referee goes down, there's going to be some kind of monkey business, and we were completely right about that. Now Joseph Samael's going to insert himself into this match, and we got Tom Lawler on the other side, so things are heating up in this match in a big way.
Yeah, they were, and again, like the heels are trying to cheat to get this victory. Again, I love the spot where at this point Fatu lays Ross out, and he goes for the cover before the interferences start happening, and he's wondering why there's no ref to count it out, and he looks over at Samael and Samael, what the F you doing, man? You took the ref out. Like, you can't win if there's no referee. And I think the announcers try to say that Fatu a little thrown off that another referee had not come out to make that count at that point. That's when Samael gets involved. And then all of a sudden, Tom Lawler comes in to even the score. The fans are excited. Former champion, the guy who lost to Jacob Fatu, gets in there. He picks up a chair. It's time to even the score. But wait. Not quite, because we have finally the turn of Filthy Tom Lawler. So we knew Filthy Tom Lawler as the heel Tom Lawler, and we've gone back to watch some of his babyface work. This was the turning point where he turned on the very guys he brought into MLW. He brought the Von Erichs there, and he turned on them on this very night, laying out Ross Von Erich with that chair and giving Fatu the advantage that would inevitably lead to the pinfall victory, retaining the championship belt. In the process, after doing this, he leaves the ring with the words F Contra and F the Von Erichs family. I don't think Tom Lawler likes anybody at this point in time. He is done with everybody. He's had enough. He's on his own. To hell with everybody on this roster.
Yeah, and his actions in this match had huge reverberations throughout all the booking and all the storytelling that was going on for the next year in MLW, partly because, like you said, he said F the Von Erichs, F Contra, so he's on his own. But that was when he started Team Filthy, right? And started getting his own faction together. We saw he had Dominic Guarini and Kevin Koo and a few other guys in his faction. So this started to develop the power balance in MLW for that whole next year.
You know what, Mel's comment, I'm not going to lie, I hated Lawler when you first saw him in New Japan Pro Wrestling, and not much has changed. However, I respect him a lot more and appreciate his commentary skills. You know what, Mel? You're not supposed to like Tom Lawler, especially at these times. He is a filthy heel character. You're supposed to hate him. But this guy, again, a former MMA fighter, adapted to pro wrestling really well and had a great run as the MLW champion in the babyface role. Once he turned heel, it got interesting. He toes that line between comedy and serious pro wrestling quite well, as we saw with his Filthy Island episode, which, I mean, as different and weird as it was, Papa Smokes, I gotta say, we did enjoy ourselves watching it.
Yeah, we did indeed. And I was going to say, Mel, if you don't like him, don't you at least like his Daisy Duke trunks?
Gotta love those Daisy Dukes. I think those are absolutely amazing. That's we got, of course, what's this guy's name? Filthy seems like a guy I can't trust. You shouldn't trust him. He is filthy. He's dirty. He'll take any way to win a match that he can. But, you know, he can win a match with his bare hands at the same time. He doesn't have to play dirty if he doesn't want to. But he's known to bend a few rules. We've seen him pay off some referees, a few of those dirty tricks that he likes to pull. And, again, I'm glad that he's been able to go and advance his career heading on out to New Japan Pro Wrestling. Like him or love him or hate him as it goes, he's still filthy Tom Lawler, and I'm sure he's kicking some ass over there in New Japan. And, again, I think we got a response to the Daisy Dukes are the worst. They make me cry like whoever's cat that is. that comment of the night right there, that is beautiful. Again, Bing crying in the background is the same kind of crying that Mel does when she sees Tom Lawler's Daisy Dukes. You know, somebody clip this and send it to Tom Lawler. I think he needs to know right there. That is perfect. But, oh, man, a lot of fun that we're having here tonight, Papa Smokes. Glad so many of you were able to join and get in on the conversation. That was that matchup. Again, this Fusion has been kicking off. This is episode 3 of the show. We're going to be bringing you guys lots and lots of great things, especially with the new season kicking off. You're going to be able to join us on Thursday nights to watch that. And then, again, Thursday nights, they are going to take a little bit of a facelift, though, because our good friends, Astra Pizarro and Cody Defoe, are going to be doing an Impact Wrestling review show on Thursday night that they're going to do shortly after us. So what we're going to do is we're going to bring you Fusion on Thursday nights, and we're also going to do a recording of Ring Respect Radio, or we're going to bring it to you live on a different day, whatever we can do to bring you Ring Respect Radio as well as Fusion as well too. But we're going to make way on Thursday nights for Astrid and Cody to be able to tell you all about Impact Wrestling. And I, for one, am looking forward to watching that show, Papa Smokes, because I need to get caught up on all the happenings over in Impact Wrestling.
Yeah, same here. Excited about that. And we need a show that covers Impact because it's one of the main wrestling promotions in North America.
Defoe and the Natural. I like that. That's got a nice ring to it right there. That's I hope they use that as their tag names right across the screen during that show. That'd be absolutely. I love it. But it's going to be great to be able to share Thursday nights with two wonderful people talking about another great wrestling program. We know two companies that obviously have a good working relationship, and I'd like to see a lot more crossover between both MLW and Impact as well, too, because I think that's two of the best rosters in North American wrestling to date. And I do say North American wrestling because, again, we do have a lot of great wrestling all across the globe. But, again, Papa Smokes, that's pretty much it for this episode of Fusion. I know even Bing's telling you, hey, buddy, it's time for bed at this point in time.
Yeah.
But it's been a great show. And again, Bastard 69 coming in. Ole, 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 ole. He says, thanks for the shirt, Papa. And I have a new wedding shirt. That's beautiful. And again, Yeah, I love it. Thank you, Ryan, for joining in. And I'll see you at work tomorrow, my man. So it's been a great show as always. And thanks to everybody for joining in. But before we leave you and part you here tonight, Papa Smokes, why don't you tell these wonderful people in the meantime and in between time where they can find Mr. Papa Smokes and reach out to you with all their wrestling questions and matches they want you to see.
All right, Munson, let's do this again. I'm on Twitter, also known as Elon Musk's Super Fun Land, at Smokes_Papa. And then I'm on Twitch at Papa_Smokes_.
He's got 2 socials these days, as that Papa Smokes, so reach out to
Oh,
him.
yeah.
And again, you know where to find me. You know where to find us. Again, you can catch us on Thursday nights right here on this channel, on YouTube, and on Facebook Live. So thank you to everyone who tuned into any one of those 3 channels. Do appreciate the support. You can also catch me this Sunday on the 3rd episode of Busting Out with Chris Parrish. We are going to be joined this week by Drew Nicholas, who is somebody who works for Fightful. So it is going to be wonderful to have him on as a very special guest this Sunday on the show. Mel saying, great show, gentlemen. Ole, thank you, Mel. We love it. Thank you for joining us as well, too. And, I'll find you, Bobby. I know you will, man. We got to catch up, go for a drink one of these days. Looking forward to it. And Ed, best way to spend my Thursday night. Ole, thank you, Ed. I'm so glad all of you spend your Thursday night right here with the Video Bros. We have a great time with every single one of you. You can also check us out Saturdays on the Prairie Pro Wrestling YouTube channel as we call the matches with the commentary team over there for Prairie Pro Wrestling. A new match comes out every Saturday afternoon, so stay tuned for that. And and Fightful Select, I believe so. Again, reach out to Chris Parrish. He knows the details. He'll have it all for you, and keep checking the socials because the announcement's all there. You'll be able to check out that episode of Busting Out this Sunday. And I've also got a little bit of a new thing I'm going to be trying out here, Papa Smokes. You know, because outside of pro wrestling, I watch a lot of movies, TV. I listen to a lot of music. Yeah, I'm a music guy. You know that. Beats and Beatdowns with Carl Carafell. You know, season 2 is coming up very soon. So we're going to be able to do a little bit of reviewing, and that's what I'm going to be bringing you guys right away here. The first episode of The Bravado with Bobby is going to be taking place here quite possibly this weekend, as I'm going to be reviewing the new Slipknot album that's coming out, as well as the movie Don't Worry Darling. So those 2 things are up on my list of things to do coming up this weekend, so stay tuned. Those are going to be coming to you live here soon. And then Loli, thanks. This was excellent. Thanks. And thank you to you too. I know you have sung our praises and gotten the word out there. Tons. We appreciate it from the bottom of my heart. Thank you. You're an absolute true friend. Really appreciate it. And you're all our true friends, good people, wonderful people. Love each and every one of you. Thanks for joining in. And you know what? Until next Thursday night, stay safe. Be good to each other. Watch wrestling. Enjoy wrestling. And join us every single Thursday. Take care. And we'll see you next Thursday.